Information shared on the following program is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, investment, or other advice, nor is it intended to recommend any particular investments, products, or financial instruments. Always seek advice from your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant with regard to investment, legal, or tax questions.
Welcome to the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money, the Worry-Free Retirement, with your host, retirement specialist and six-time author and fiduciary, Tony Walker.
With more and more advisors duking it out in the retirement planning ring, I watch things play out as well. And it concerns me that many of the savers I meet in search of an advisor they can trust to handle their life savings are not getting anything resembling what we offer. A well-thought-out, written game plan, something like this. And while retirement calculators, free internet tools, of all things, a 40-page document that I've got here beside me that contain complicated spreadsheets that most prospects can't understand, we take it a step differently, especially when you consider that over the next 20, 30, or even 40 years, you're going to need a plan in retirement that will adapt to the changes that are going to come your way. Yet, as complicated and unpredictable as retirement planning will be, when you boil it all down, successful retirement planning for savers comes down to accurately answering these two questions. Number one, how much can I spend in retirement? And question number two, how much can I spend in retirement without the fear of one day running out? Which is why today we continue our journey with the most frequently asked questions of Tony Walker Financial, Part 2, and how we are well equipped to answer them. Oh, by the way, in case you missed last week's show, you can watch it on YouTube, or if you'd like to listen to our podcast, you can listen to it by logging on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. When you get there, just scroll down to the Listen tab, and you can get all the questions answered that you might have. Okay, today we will be diving into question category number 3, income planning and annuities, followed by question category number 4, investment risk and market volatility. So let's start with income planning and annuities and how the two do go hand in hand. So let's start off with what is income planning? Well, let's answer that question with a common question from savers, and it goes something like this. Tony, how much guaranteed income do I need in retirement? So when someone asks me this question, I always ask them the meaning of what they say is guaranteed. Are they asking if I can guarantee them an income for a certain period of time or a guaranteed income for the rest of their lives? And to help us answer this question is none other than our fiduciary in the Bowling Green office, Miss Heather Hughes.
Guaranteed income in retirement can come from multiple sources, including Social Security, pensions, and annuities. Typically, the rule of thumb is you would like to replace 70 to 80% of your pre-retirement income with a combination of those three things. What we like to do is take a look at everything and just see where those shortfalls lie and may be able to insert an income annuity or some other things to close the gap on that. Additionally, a lot of times we will use an income annuity to replace a lost Social Security benefit from the death of a spouse.
The next frequently asked questions about an income and annuities, this one comes up all the time. What's the difference between an income annuity and an accumulation annuity? To answer this question, let's turn it over to fellow fiduciary in the Louisville office, Mr. Trey Juergens.
That's a great question because both of those are very often confused. Accumulation annuities are designed for safe growth. They protect you from downside market loss while allowing you to earn interest if the market indices perform well. On the other hand, income annuities are built for what we like to call mailbox money. Their purpose is turning a portion of your savings into guaranteed lifetime income. So these are two very different annuities, but both very important in retirement planning.
Here's another frequently asked question. It goes something like this. At what age is it best for someone to purchase a mailbox type annuity? Now, we're going to turn it over to Jennifer Jaggers, and although Jennifer Jaggers is not an advisor, she handles all of the new business dealing with annuities, so I thought she could give us an idea of the typical age of most people who purchase what we call an income annuity or
Mailbox Money!
Most applications I see come through for an income annuity, also known as a Mailbox Money annuity, would be for a person who is looking to retire in the near future or has just recently retired, who is looking for a supplemental income going forward that won't ever go away.
So those are the most frequently asked questions dealing with income planning and annuities. When we come back in our next segment, we're going to talk about investment risk and market volatility. That's right, folks. What happens if this darn stock market takes another crash like it did in 2008? So you stay tuned. This is the Worry-Free Retirement. I'm Tony Walker, and we will be right back.
This Tony Walker Financial 5-star review comes to us from Rick Rigney. I am 70 years old and have been with many financial advisors. Tony Walker and his staff are the best. After our first visit, a plan was put together and presented to me and the wife. We no longer worry about our retirement and look forward to our mailbox check each month. Tony Walker and his staff are truly worthy of a 5-star rating. If you'd like to read more of our 5-star reviews, simply log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
Want to know what savers were saying right before the stock market crash of 2008?
At our age, we just don't want to be on the roller coaster of the stock market anymore.
I'm not satisfied with my mutual funds at all.
When you work as hard as you have worked, you do want to be able to start enjoying a little bit of that money.
Stop putting your money at risk when you don't have to. Learn how to safeguard more of your retirement savings by logging on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com or call 877-499-9255. As some of you who keep up with Tony Walker Financial might be aware, we are known as experts in the field of annuities. In fact, over the years, we've written nearly 7,000 annuities totaling over $700 million of premiums. But we are not just about annuities. In fact, of the more than $1.1 billion in clients' money that we oversee, nearly $400 million of that $1.1 billion comprises over 2,700 accounts that we have in securities through our Charles Schwab platform. In fact, over the many years that I've personally worked in both the annuity world and the investment world, something we call the split IRA concept, it is something that we have perfected. In other words, how we can handle both annuities and investments. So it gives our clients the opportunity for growth, if that's something they want, through the Charles Schwab platform, but at the same time guaranteeing that they won't run out of money, which is where annuities come in. Now, before we move into category 4, the investment category, and those questions that come up with market risk, I wanted to offer up a free tool that savers love, and this is something we designed called the Spending Plan. It's a guide to assist savers in knowing exactly how much money they're going to need from their investments that they've saved so that they can spend it. Now, to get this free download, just go to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. You're going to click on that download section. You can download this for free and other items we have. Or if you don't want to go on the internet to get it, all you got to do is email Gina at TonyWalkerFinancial.com and be sure to provide Gina your name and mailing address, and we'll be happy to mail you a free copy of our spending plan. All right, let's get back to the most frequently asked questions, and it revolves around the thought of what in the world will happen to your money and your retirement if something happens like a 2008, which saw many savers lose as much as 50% of their retirement accounts. What happens to my income if the stock market crashes like it did in 2008? Well, to help us explain how we position our clients' assets and what we would do to stave off one of these crashes, we're going to turn it over now to our own Wes Walker to explain.
Well, Tony, we would certainly have different accounts positioned for different reasons. We might have a short-term Charles Schwab bucket that's conservatively invested. That money shouldn't be affected too drastically, so we might be able to still pull from it. Our longer-term Charles Schwab buckets that are invested more aggressively, we would try not to pull from because they would likely be down at that time. It's all very case dependent, and it definitely depends on the context of someone's retirement plan.
Another frequently asked question when it comes to investing for retirement is this one. How much risk should I take if I'm age 40 as opposed to the amount of risk I should take when I turn 65? To help us here, we're going to go back to fellow fiduciary in the Bowling Green office, Miss Heather Hughes.
The risk tolerance for a 40-year-old versus a 65-year-old can vary, obviously, mainly due to time. Back in 2008, when the stock market declined about 38 to 40%, it took about 5.5 years to recover those losses. So everybody was made whole roughly around 2013. If you're a 40-year-old, you have plenty of time to recover that because you're going to have at least 20 more years of work. 65-year-old doesn't need to take as much risk as that because time is not on their side. So they would have a shorter window to recover from those types of market losses.
And finally, here's an investment question we hear all of the time, and it does involve mailbox money, and it goes something like this. Tony, we would like to entertain investing some of our money in what you call this mailbox money, but can I still invest some money for growth with you all through the Charles Schwab platform? Well, again, to help us explain this concept of the split IRA and how we mesh the ability to safeguard money, plus if you want to take some risk and try to grow it, we're going to turn it over to fellow fiduciary in our Louisville office, Mr. Trey Juergens.
The answer to that question is absolutely. That's actually how most of our clients do it. We use what's called the WorryFree split IRA concept. Instead of choosing between safety or growth, we use both. One portion of your money is going to be positioned for guaranteed lifetime income, or what we like to call mailbox money, and the rest can be invested as conservatively or aggressively as you'd like to be, but that provides you immediate access for distributions. The result is income you can count on right now, but the guarantee of mailbox money later.
So there you have it, folks. More of your questions answered by a local retirement planning firm that includes an owner who will meet with you in person, 3 highly trained salaried fiduciaries who are always available, as well as 16 other full-time employees ready and able to serve your changing needs in retirement. So if you are retired or would like to see if you can retire in the very near future and you're looking for a local firm you can trust, let's talk. And we have made this so easy to do, we call it the free 10-minute fiduciary phone call with myself and you talking about your situation. So to take advantage of speaking to me, Tony Walker, simply log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com, TonyWalkerFinancial.com, or call us anytime at 877-499-9255. When I return, I'm going to share with you what a typical game plan, so-called game plan, looks like from the financial world versus what we do and how we approach finances from what I call the 3 halves of life. Good stuff coming your way. This is the Worry-Free Retirement. We'll be right back. Don't let the fear of running out of money in retirement keep you up at night. Turn your 401k into mailbox money for life by logging on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com or call 877-499-9255. Welcome back to the Worry-Free Retirement, and we're talking about this whole notion of being able to spend and enjoy our money, which is the whole live well, die broke philosophy, and the problem that many savers have, and that is not having what I would call a spending plan and an understanding realistically of how money is spent over time. I'm going to get into the 3 halves of life in just a second. But this is the problem. This is a 35-page report that a prospective client came in with their advisor and wanted me to look at. And immediately I've seen these things. Folks, I used to do this kind of stuff, this financial planning stuff that makes all these wild assumptions. And what's interesting about this, again, this is really not a spending plan. Here's one thing on page 8 of 35. There's 35 pages here of just numbers and spreadsheets. I mean, this person looked at me and said, I have no idea what I'm even looking at. But notice it says if we went back to the 2008, this portfolio they're recommending would have only lost 20% and the account would have gone down $128,000. Now, most savers in retirement, that is unacceptable. Then you go over to the probability of success. I love this page. It says based on the portfolio, and their simulations, and we do some simulations too where you go back and test things, that means nothing. But even with their simulations, there's only an 84% chance of success. In other words, potentially in the year 2035, this plan could run out of money. So to me, this doesn't sound like a plan at all. What we're trying to do is achieve 100% success, and that starts with having an understanding of what retirement looks like. Folks, we're not trying to grow money and grow money and grow money to compound inflation and all that. That's not how retirement works at all. And again, as someone who has met in person with over 20,000 people, we have nearly 4,000 clients, most of whom are retired. We have the experience and know how to understand how this spending plan is going to play out. And I created this some 20 years ago. It's called the 3 Halves of Life. And you may have seen this countless times, but I feel like I need to keep going over this because, again, people come in with these types of plans that are trying to project all of these huge amounts of money in the future, and it makes no sense whatsoever, especially if you have what's called a qualified account, a 401k or an IRA. I mean, think about this, folks. One day you're going to pass away, and if you've got this huge amount of money stockpiled, it's going to have something buried inside it that I call the tax tumor. And that tax tumor is going to be passed off to your kids, and they're going to have to take that money out within 10 years, and this could be a disaster for them. So what we want to do is we want to try to spend down those assets without the fear of one day running out. So again, very quickly, this is called the first half of life. For those of you watching, we would be happy to talk to you, but if you're roughly under the age of 50, for the most part, I had someone come in that was 45. They're a prospect for what we do because they're wanting to retire very early and they've got a lot of money. But if you're under 50, the first half is what I call the accumulation phase. Generally, that's not our prospect. Our prospective clients are people who have reached halftime, and generally that's over the age of 50, or who are what's called in the second half of life, and that's generally those over age 70. So the reason we are very good at what we do is we understand that in halftime, that's why the account's going up in value, that's where you're going to start spending the most money. So we actually are going to start spending principal and interest. Again, put the game plan up, Aaron. If you'll notice this, we break this up into 5-year increments. We did this on purpose when I designed this software. I want to give people a visual of what's going to happen over their lifetime and what is more realistic. And what's more realistic is, as people get into the second half of life, they start spending less and less money. And this may be you right now. You may have a faulty notion of how much money you really need to make it in retirement. In fact, here's a interesting article right here. Put this up, Aaron. It's talking about needing $1 million. That's what everybody thinks they need is $1 million. And while certainly $1 million will help in retirement, folks, there's many people I work with out there that have $250,000, $350,000 who just don't spend a lot of money and can comfortably retire on that amount of money. Again, it just depends on how much your lifestyle requires in retirement. So the best thing you can do is meet with somebody who is experienced in the field of retirement planning, like Tony Walker Financial. We have the experience, we have the know-how. I have other members on this team in place, so should something happen to Tony Walker, I have 3 highly trained salaried fiduciaries who can take over and run the operation and continue to maintain your income plan in retirement. So that's you. If you're retired, nearing retirement, maybe you're approaching the age of 59 and a half and you want to get that 401k over to an advisor locally that can manage it for you, we need to talk. So to set up a time to visit with me briefly by phone, just log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com, TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Let's set up that free phone call, and if it warrants, we then are going to meet in person. That's right, I'll be meeting with you to lay out your personalized game plan at no cost or obligation to you. Internet not your thing? No worries, just call us anytime at 877-499-9255. Well, what does the Bible have to say about spending your money and keeping you from falling into what I call the guilt trip gospel? Good stuff coming your way. I'm Tony Walker. We'll be right back.
This Tony Walker Financial 5-star review comes to us from Linda McGuire. I have been a client since 2009 and have not regretted being part of the Tony Walker family. When I was forced into retirement in 2009, I was really confused of who to trust my retirement and 401k with. Tony and his staff made the transition very, very painless. I highly recommend Tony Walker Financial. If you'd like to read more of our 5-star reviews, simply log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
Our client spotlight today features longtime clients of Tony Walker Financial, Miss Marge Graves and her loving husband, Mr. Bob Graves. Hello, y'all. How you all doing?
Hi, Tony.
We're good, Tony. Well, I had just retired from UPS. I was an occupational health nurse there. And I had a fair amount of money in my 401k, and Bob was still working. And when Bob came home that day, I said, I want to go to one of the seminars that Tony has. And Bob does not like change.
I said, we've already got a financial advisor. Everything's set up already. Why are we going to waste our time, and go listen to this guy? And she said, well, if you don't want to go, I'll go. We sat there and we listened to you and we enjoyed it. In fact, we went several weeks, You
went to several presentations.
Absolutely.
We did them every week, I think.
Oh, yeah.
I remember.
I was so impressed, Tony, because it was not a hard sell pitch. You were giving information. You were not inviting people to a dinner. You were not enticing people with anything but your expertise and knowledge and your willingness to sit down with people, not to sign people up right then, but to help them decide maybe what they needed to look at. And like I said, it never was a hard sales pitch.
Well, we appreciated that. And then, of course, it led to us working together, and obviously appreciated your business there. But what really got you over the hump to decide to move? Because you were already with a bank and had some money there. Why did you move your money over to Tony Walker Financial? Do you remember?
Well, I think when you're dealing with a person's life savings, there has to be trust. That has to be number one thing. And like Marge said, we felt confident that you were the one that we could trust with our money.
Looking for an advisor you can trust? Schedule your free phone call with Tony at TonyWalkerFinancial.com or call 1-877-499-9255.
So we were wrapping up an episode the other day, and Tony calls me over for something. I was diligently at work, but I pop up and I dash over there to see what's going on, and he asked me for a cup of coffee. I asked him if the store brand would be all right, and he said, no, only the Starbucks will do. There's a nicer way of saying that, but admittedly in the past he has said if I drank cheap coffee, I'd die. I only asked because that morning I unfortunately had the last Starbucks. All we had left was tea, decaf, and the cheap stuff. So I thought I'd do some digging and see if we had any extra laying around, but unfortunately we seem to be completely out. So I think about it and I just decide I'm gonna have to take the risk and hope he doesn't notice a difference. So I hand him his coffee and I watch intently for any reaction. And it seems like I'm in the clear. Sometimes working for Tony can be a bit of a challenge, but as long as you're a quick thinker, you can usually get by pretty well. I'd like to think that he and I... never mind.
Have you recently retired, been laid off, or offered a buyout? Has the company you work for moved, been acquired, or closed its doors forever? And finally, do you have a 401k with a previous employer you'd like to move to safer territory? Then take advantage of this opportunity to move your 401k or lump sum pension to Tony Walker Financial. Let's meet in person to discuss your retirement options. Log on now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com to schedule your free, no obligation appointment. Let us help you today.
Welcome back to the WorryFree Retirement with the money missionary himself, Tony Walker.
Last week on our show, we discussed the only 4 choices we humans have with our money. We can give it, spend it, leave it, or invest it. That's right, sports fans. After setting aside all the dogma from the so-called experts on YouTube, all the folks you hear on radio and TV, complicated theories and investments constantly being pitched that can be full of risk and uncertainty, and of course, the multiple opinions on what you should or should not do with your money, it all comes down to these 4 choices. And surprisingly, these choices are compliments of God. Last week, we talked about what the Bible has to say about giving to others. Today, let's tackle one of the most guilt-ridden topics of them all, and that's how we as Christians are supposed to spend the money that God has blessed us with. You see, over the 40-plus years I've been advising people on money, of the sheepish responses to money I see from savers who come to me for a second opinion on how best to be worry-free in retirement, the notion that many admit to feeling guilty over their spending habits is at the top of the list. The reason Christians feel so guilty about their spending habits is in many cases due to other Christians putting them on what I call the guilt trip gospel, a concept that originates from the biblical interpretation that the money you and I have in our current possession is not really our money, but God's money. Now, to me, this is a faulty notion and one that I feel is not biblical at all as I watch the lives of clients in retirement play out and as I have personally studied the Bible in terms of what it says about money. See, I see that there's no indication that this man-made commodity, more on this in future shows, we refer to as money, is owned by God, nor does God want any part of it. If you read the Bible carefully, particularly the New Testament, we see Jesus and the apostles refer to money and possessions as not owned by God, but rather something that God allows us to be in charge of while it is in our possession. In other words, we are responsible for the money He allows us to possess. Whether it is the unrighteous steward who is praised by his master for taking charge and rewriting the invoices for the master's debtors, or we see in Acts chapter 5, verse 4, Peter acknowledges that the one who gives is in control of what they have possessed. I have found that it is God who gives us the liberty to make that decision. Not only, in my opinion, is this a more biblical take on money, but it is one that holds me more accountable for the actions and consequences I take. It doesn't put the responsibility back on God. And while certainly I give all the credit to God for blessing me with what I possess, I do not believe God thinks more highly of me because I have more in the bank account maybe than someone else who has less. That's because our walk has never been about the money, nor about how much we possess, but rather our walk with the Lord is about growing closer to Him with each passing day. They call it sanctification. And believe me, Christian, what I've witnessed is the more money you and I stockpile for the future and do not spend, the more worry this stockpiled money will probably create. Don't believe me? Just look at what the richest man in the world, Solomon, concluded about wealth and possessions as his life was winding down. He called it vanity. Truth be known, it was because of this man Solomon and his wisdom about money and possessions and not being able to take it with you that motivated me to write this game-changing book, for savers of course, called Live Well, Die Broke. It's a book that encourages savers to spend and enjoy their money before it's too late. And maybe that's you right now. Maybe you're retired or nearing retirement and you have no idea how much you can comfortably spend without the fear of one day running out. Well, if that's you, we need to talk. And man, have we made this easy. We call it the free 10-minute fiduciary phone call. And to set up your phone call with me, all you got to do is log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com. We'll be happy to arrange this free phone call. Oh, internet maybe not your thing? Not a problem. You can call us 24/7. That toll-free number is 877-499-9255. Well, we're out of time today, but we have more questions coming your way next week on the Worry-Free Retirement. But between now and then, if all else fails, you be worry-free and you make it a good one.